Greetings everyone from a very wild and quite windy beach. I've come to the cove, which is a lot more deserted and the ocean's a lot more wild here. And because of yesterday's full moon, the tide, it's the highest tide of the month, so the sea is at its most intense. And I just wanted to come and clear my energy field. It's been another really challenging week or so. So those of you who've been following the story will know that last Friday I went to Kidderminster's Magistrates Court. This is actually for the third time. The first two times were at Worcester Magistrates Court, and then this final time was at Kidderminster. And I was challenging initially I was challenging a speeding fine. I know that there's lots of different ways to challenge speeding, and lots of people have got lots of different theories. I used a common law approach, which is basically that I have never given my consent to the jurisdiction of West Mercia Police, and I basically refused to fill in the form that they send you a notice of intended prosecution, and you have to fill in a form. And so I basically exercised my right to remain silent. Now, they eventually called me to the court, and I went to a directions hearing because I was requiring a trial by jury. Kobe's playing with another dog now. Oh my goodness. That's quite sweet. Off he goes. Oh my god. So I was asserting my right to a trial by jury, and there's you can't have one. The legislation says you can't have one, and I'm like, I do not consent to the jurisdiction of this court. I require a trial by jury. I went back again to say the same thing, and they adjourned the case on the basis there wasn't enough time. So on this third occasion, and I've been accompanied by Dean of Buxton for all of these, and he's so sweet. He's come all the way to Worcestershire for these hearings, and it really does help to have some support. He wasn't my Mackenzie friend because he refuses to comply and conform, and they get you to fill in a form, and he refuses to conform, so there's no getting Dean to fill in any form. So he was just sitting at the back of the court, and I opened the proceedings by asking two questions. Now, the two charges, just to clarify, the two charges that I was up for, number one was not filling in the form, and number two was this alleged speeding of 37 miles an hour in a 30 mile an hour zone. And their evidence for this was actually a front-on handheld police camera photograph of my car allegedly going at 37 miles an hour, being driven by a woman who I have to admit, she did bear a stunning resemblance to me, but it could have been my twin sister if I had one. Could have been an AI faked digital image. So those were the two charges. So I opened the proceedings. Oh my goodness, see this? Tide's coming in over the rocks here. Kobe's standing there like a little mermaid dog. It's really beautiful rocks here. It's very wild, this beach. I love it. Anyway, back to the story. So I opened this proceedings by asking two questions, and there was a single judge. So this is, I guess, what's called a single justice procedure. In other words, there's just a single. And I believe he was a judge. Judge Strongman, interestingly. I found out later his name's Judge Strongman, which had conjured up this image of these sort of Victorian circus strongmen, like pulling up a kind of dumbbell. wearing a kind of striped unitard, and she couldn't make this up. So anyway, I opened with two questions. Number one, is this civil or is this criminal? To which he replied, it's criminal. So basically, that's a hell of an accusation. Essentially, that I am a criminal for essentially exercising my right to remain silent by not filling in the form. It's a criminal offence. So essentially, they have, in this legislation, so the legislation that they're quoting basically says that it's a criminal offence not to fill in the form. So essentially, what the government has done is they have legislated away our lawful right to remain silent, and they have made our right to remain silent, they have made it a criminal offence. And that's huge. Just that alone is huge. The second question that I asked is that exact question. Do I have the right to remain silent? To which Judge Strongman replied, yes and no. And so I said, do I have the right to remain silent? And he says, yes, you do. He says words to the effect of, it may affect your trial if you remain silent. So right there, he confirmed two things. Firstly, that it was a criminal offence. Secondly, I did have the right to remain silent. So can you see how, in answering those first two questions, he essentially negated the legislation right there? Now, once I got the answers to those questions, I then said, I'm here under duress. I do not consent to the jurisdiction of this court. I require a trial by jury. To which he replied, you can't have one. The legislation says you can't have one. This is a summary offence that can only be heard in a magistrate's court. So again, right there, the legislation has legislated away my right, having been accused of being a criminal, to a trial by jury, which is my lawful right. Kobe, this way. Come on, let's go this way. He then pretty much ignored me, and I'm just doing this from memory because everything gets a little bit scrambled. So he basically then asked the court clerk, how does she plead? And then this clerk to the court said, she pleads not guilty, sir. She says something like that. And I said, no, I have not entered a plea. I do not consent to the jurisdiction of this court. I require a trial by jury. Now, this is another really important point, because the minute you enter a plea, even if you say I'm innocent, if you enter a plea, even if you say no case to answer, you've entered into the conversation, you've entered into the game. And so I had to instantly rebut that. It escalated quite quickly. It's all a little bit of a blur, but basically at that point the judge said, if you keep interrupting, I'm going to hold you in contempt of court, called security. And I then basically said, I'm simply standing in my lawful rights. And it may have been at that point he said, call security. And then two security guards arrived dressed in black. They were the ones who were on the gate when we came in, on the door. And I basically said, and I had all this written down because it's very important when you go to court to type out all your statements, because when you go into a sort of fight-flight response, your frontal cortex closes down. So it's very important to type out like statements so you can remember what to say, because when you're in that situation, it's very easy to just for your mind to go blank. So luckily I had the sheet, and one of the statements, which, oh, here's the doggy again. The phone is not going to be happy. She's right at the other end of the beach. Hello, sweetie. Hey, you want to play? Do you want to play? Hey, you want to play? Where's your ball? Where's your ball? No. Gently. Come on. Come on. Where's your owner? Where's your owner? There she, right at the, oh my God. Go on, go home. Go Right, go to mummy. Go to mummy. Oh, distractions. Right, let's head this way. Let's get out of the... Oh no, it's coming with us. Oh, dear. Dog sitting. A lot of people got upset about my last video at the beach, saying that there's too much interruption with dogs barking and waves. It's like, this is even worse. Apologies about that. Anyway, I do like to do these talks in nature. So anyway, I consulted my crib sheet, and this is one of the sentences which Dean had told me to use if there was an accusation of contempt, which is, if I have caused any offence, I apologise, it was not my intention, because there needs to be willful intent for contempt of court. So if you immediately apologise and say it wasn't your intention, then it's very difficult for them to press a charge of contempt. But basically, by this point, the judge then said he was starting to get quite angry at this point, and he basically said, you either sit down or you leave the court and be tried in your absence. Now, at this point, Dean actually interjected because I didn't know what to do. Now, Dean strictly wasn't supposed to speak, but he just said, Rachel, you either need to sit down or you need to leave the court. Now, the reason why he was very concerned at that point is because, of course, when you step into a courtroom, it's like you're stepping into a machine. It's like you're stepping into a metaphysical machine. And inside that room, inside that box, because it's a cube, if you look at a courtroom, no windows, it's like a prison cell, it's a cube. It's very Masonic. And when you've stepped into that cube, you're very, very vulnerable, because it's like a portal into prison. Because if the judge decides that he has the power to do it and decides that you're in contempt, you get taken straight to the cells. So it's a very dangerous situation, and Dean, realising this, basically said, Rachel, you either have to sit down or we leave the court now. So I was like, okay, we're going to leave. Now, I was shaking by this point, and then as we left the court inside the kind of inner corridor, the main security guards arrived, like the G4S guys that wear the white shirts and the black ties, the ones that take you into prison, you know. So they're like, go back in, and we're like, the judge just said to leave, and they said, wait here. The other two security guards, all wearing black, were still with us. They said, wait here. We need to go back in and check with the judge. And then they came back out and said, she hasn't been charged. We can't touch her. They used those words. Like, oh my God. So we went out and we just sat down on the chairs, and Dean basically said, do you realise how close you were to being charged with contempt of court? And they would have taken you into the cells. The sentence is 6 months in prison, and it would have been straight to prison situation. So it was quite a precarious situation, and to be quite honest, I didn't actually have any awareness, and I didn't feel, it was so bizarre, I didn't feel any anger, and I didn't feel any fear. I just felt like completely in my sovereign power. Anyway, so we're sitting there, and I'm shaking a bit, and then the clerk to the court comes out a few minutes later and says, they're continuing with the trial. The judge is asking, do you want to come in and hear the police evidence? And I said to her, I'm too terrified to return because I'm frightened of being sent to prison. And Dean said, why don't you put a statement in to the court? Now, luckily, as I said, I typed these statements, and you know, like statements like quoting Gandhi. It is the duty of the people to challenge unjust legislation. And Thomas Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson said, I may be misquoting, I consider trial by jury as the only anchor by which the people can hold the government to the principles of its constitution. So there were statements like this here, along with, I leave the court of my own volition. If I have caused any offence, I apologise. It was not my intention. So all of these statements, along with, I do not consent to the jurisdiction of this court, I do not understand, I require trial by jury, they were all in this statement. So I signed this, I dated it, and I put the time on it, 2:20 p.m. I sent it back into the court. And then then Dean just basically said, okay, let's get out of here. And they said, phone on Monday and find out what happened. So anyway, I phoned on Monday. Now, bear in mind, I was the only case listed for that afternoon. I phoned on Monday and they said they haven't decided your case yet. The judge needs to speak to the legal advisor. So clearly they were in a dilemma about what to do. And anyway, eventually yesterday, I phoned back again and they said, you've been found guilty of not completing the form. You've been given 6 points on your licence. You've been given a fine of £660 and a victim surcharge of £264. To which I replied, who is the victim? This is one of the statements that I put in. If a crime has been committed, who is the victim? Who is the victim? There is no victim. So how can there be a crime? So she says, I can't enter into any discussion about it. I'm just telling you what happened. And I said, well, how do I complain about this aberration of justice? And she said, you'll have to write in. So I'm waiting to get the court papers to get confirmation. Now, one of the interesting things is that there were 2 charges, but they didn't find me guilty of the speeding element of the case. And that is a very interesting thing, because basically what that says is that they depend on your admission, your confession, via filling in the form. They absolutely depend on that for the prosecution. It's a really interesting point of law. Or I wouldn't even say law, because it's not law to me, it's the legislation. So, in other words, camera evidence is not sufficient. Even if they have an image of the driver from a frontal photograph, it is not sufficient to convict someone, because I would assume otherwise they would have me having presented myself in court and this picture bearing a striking resemblance to me, although, as I say, could have been my twin sister, could have been manipulated digitally, could have been an AI fake, who knows. They didn't find me guilty for the speeding element of this. So it was a very interesting experience. Hold on, where's Kobe gone now? Oh, there he is. Okay, come here. So, I am going to enter a complaint. I'm going to do what Rog did though as well, which is I'm going to make payment of the fine under duress. In other words, I'm going to pay it to avoid imprisonment, but I am going to pay it under duress because I do not agree. I'm not guilty. I'm not a criminal. What happened to me in that courtroom was completely unlawful in my opinion. And I do feel it's very important to challenge the system. Now, when I was speaking to Conrad's Love in my last video, and he was saying, it's a bit of a waste of time. And on one hand, I agree, it is very draining. But on the other hand, I do feel it's important for us to challenge the system because we are like waves against the rock. Look at these rocks here. Look at what the waves have done to these rocks here. This was all part of the cliff, I'm sure, at some point. The wave after wave after wave eventually will destroy the rock, and that's what's happening. We're headed to the Neptune-Saturn conjunction, which is happening. It's almost conjunct twice, and then on the third time it's conjunct at 0 degrees of Aries, the very beginning of the astrological cycle next February. And it is very symbolic of the waves of Neptune, the ocean, collapsing the structure, Saturn collapsing the mountain. So this is a very poignant place for me to do this video. So anyway, so I've got to find, interestingly, it's £924. If you're interested in numerology, you add up those numbers and you get to 15, which is the devil in tarot. There's a lot of symbolism in this. But the other challenge I have is because I phoned my insurance company yesterday to update them. They basically have said they're cancelling my insurance. So I've got 7 days grace to reinsure myself to drive. Now, I used to pay about £400 a year insurance. I got like 9 years. I've never had an accident. I've been driving since I was 17. I'm now 60 years old. I've never had an accident. I've got a full no claims bonus. But the quote that I've got with these points on is £1,100. It's the cheapest quote that I could get via comparethemeerkat.com. Oh my God. So I'm also going to have to find, on top of the fine, £1,100 for the insurance. I could pay it in instalments, but that you have to pay extra. So it's basically £2,000. So yeah, and I mean it's just on top of a lot of other stuff. I mean I just had to spend £1,500 on the car to have the cam belt repaired and things fixed on it to keep it roadworthy. So it's all been a bit of a challenge, but I do get, in the scheme of things, it's we are being called to stand strong in the face of this and not crumble. And I do find that coming into nature and recalibrating is a really good strategy. Now, Rog, who I accompanied Rog last month on a similar thing to Harrogate Magistrates Court, he got fined £980. And I did a little crowdfunder for him, and he raised the whole money. And so he said, Rach, let me do a crowdfunder for you. And I'm like, no, actually, I don't want to ask for donations again, because people have been so generous, especially during the political campaigning. Everyone was so generous, and I would much prefer to create value and to raise the money through creating some value. And I was thinking, well, maybe I'll do some kind of one-to-one mentoring offer, like a Valentine's Day special or something. And then I'm just thinking, I've got a lot in my diary already, because I'm running 2 groups at the moment, the 90 Days to Transformation group, and I'm also working on a new video product, which is essentially an ultimate guide to business, to starting out in business. And it's basically, my intention is to create an online program which basically succinctly condenses everything I've learned about business and marketing, along with metaphysical principles like things like mindset and visioning and intention, and all of the kind of ways that you can inadvertently block the effortless flow of clients and possibilities to you. So it's something I've been working on, and I've been scoping, and I've been massively inspired by all of the one-to-one sessions and the clients I'm working with, because it's like, as I work one-to-one with clients, they give me the inspiration for all of the key teachings. So I've been scoping this program and getting to that point where it's fully scoped, and then it will be very easy for me to record all the videos, because I haven't actually done an online program for a long time. And actually that's where all this started, with my first program, Business Alchemy, back in 2012, which was an incredibly successful program. I think probably 1,000 people took Business Alchemy. And it had rave reviews, and that's what started me doing a lot of online programs, and eventually inspired Source TV. So I suddenly woke up with an epiphany this morning. I'm a business mentor, but I always feel it's good to get mentoring advice from people. And I had a really amazing little session with an incredible guy who's an MBA. He's a friend of Philly, actually. He was one of the masterminds of GiftCaff, which he did for Telefonica. He's a business consultant, And he was talking about building in the power of community, which I'm totally up for. And so one of the things that I would love to do is actually gather together a whole group of beta testers for me to put the material into the group and have weekly Zooms and also like a Telegram group, and to create the online video programs and material, but then have a group to actually work through it together and to feed back to me their progress, their challenges, and to essentially help me create and polish the diamond of this program. So that was my epiphany this morning, is like, oh my God, just like I did with Liberation, to basically invite you, if you want to help me and support me, allow me to support you in return. If you're in business, or if you're thinking about going into business, and you would love to beta test this program and help me shape this and develop the content, then to come on board. I'm going to launch it after Easter, so that's my intention, because everything's so busy up till then, and I always think it's a good thing after the Easter holidays, boom, to launch this. So if you would like to be part of that beta test program and help me to scope this material, which is this ultimate guide to business, effortless business, getting into flow and abundance, which I'm really passionate about, because my experience is like, if everything's a struggle, stop swimming and see where the current takes you. And when you do get the formula right in business, it is very effortless and it can go very fast. And certainly that's what I found with my Red Letter Days experience. So if you'd like to support me at this challenging time and be supported in return, a kind of sacred reciprocity, then I'm going to put a link to a page. I'm going to set up a page below if you want to come on board for that beta testing group and to be part of my early adopters group and help me to scope this material and to work through the content with me. And I promise you, it's going to be the most powerful video program I've ever created. I'm just going to pour all of my 60 years experience in business into this, and I grew up above my dad's shop, so I literally have had a lifetime's experience of business, being in and around business. And also, if you want to support me but you're not particularly interested in being part of the program, then what I'm happy to do is, if you make a contribution, I'm happy for your place to go to someone who maybe can't afford to be part of it. So my feeling is to make this £99. So I'm going to invert the 666 to 99, a very affordable price point. So if you'd like to be part of that beta test team, if you'd like to support me through this challenge that I'm having, then come on board. £99. We're going to set sail in April, and I'll work out ways to give you lots of value in return for your support. And yeah, as I say, if you just want to help but you're not really interested in being part of the program, then I can use your contribution to pay it forward to someone who maybe wants to come on board, but really, that if their tide is out right now, and they really just don't have £99, then you could finance someone's place on that beta test. So if that resonates, you want to jump on board, you want to support me, then click on the link below, and I'll see you in April. Sending you so much love and huge gratitude for your support. As always, I know that we're all chipping away in our own little ways. Everyone's doing their part, like the waves against the rock, to expose the system and to co-create a new way of being, which is about collaboration, co-creative cooperation, and let's vision into being and co-create the world we do want, rather than this shit show pantomime where it's the system is not fit for purpose. I think we're all really feeling that right now. So sending you lots of love. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.